Hello, comrades. Breana here. Welcome to another episode of Signs of Breana. Signs of Breana is a collection of musings, dreams, and dialogues documenting one person's path towards elderhood, liberation, and a life worth dreaming.
Welcome to another episode of Signs of Breana. I'm Breana. Welcome, comrades. Today, we have the pleasure of getting to sit and talk about all the things grief with Paige. Paige, will you introduce yourself and just share a little bit about what you do, what you're about?
Yeah. Hey, my name is Paige. Um, Paige Oyeleke. I got many names. And also go by Mabole, Wale. It's the name given to me in spiritual communities. My pronouns are they, them. I'm from Detroit. That's important. I am a transdisciplinary artist, a space holder, culture keeper, birth worker, portal worker, uh, cultural organizer. Yeah, yeah. I think those are the best ways to describe me today.
Mm, thank you for being here. And I think what hits for me to begin with, I'm so grateful that you accepted my invitation. You were like, and let's talk about it now. We need to talk about the grief now. And this is my grief portal month. Every October, I celebrate my mother's life, my mother's passing, and her life and her death has, I don't know, changed my entire outlook on wh- who do I want to, how do I want to be, who do I want to be, and like, I know before we began this conversation, we were talking about, yes, there's the grief that comes with death, like that is sometimes I think the grief that folks are most accustomed to, but I experience grief all the fucking time, for any number of reasons, and I think the first thing that pops out to me is like grief in our homes of origin. And you said, like, I'm from Detroit, that's important. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about grief in Detroit, your
Yeah.
Detroit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ooh, I love that. I love that. I feel like, honestly, I feel like folks from Detroit and honestly some places that like I kind of think of as sister cities, like Baltimore and New Orleans, we can folk. And people who have from those places or been to all three, they get it. You get it, you get it. But like I feel like we have a way of just like grieving and making that a part of our living and our creativity and not in a way where like grief makes us like stuck or something like that. It's just it's like I said, it's part of our creativity, it's part of who we are. It's sometimes part of the chip that's on our shoulder to being from Detroit. Um I definitely think of like the grief that comes with like economic like exploitation and decay. I think of and neglect. I think about the grief that comes with um, like generating just so much for culture, especially culture.
Mm.
Like that's one of the main things that I feel like comes to mind with Detroit. But when I learned like just how much of the country's manufacturing Detroit has done over the years, not as much in recent years, but that then became part of my like grief too, of just like, wow, we giving this place so much. And like not just built the infrastructure here, like in the city that I see, but like across the country, people would get things made
Yeah.
here or learn how to make a
Mm.
thing here. And then when it's no longer seen as useful, or the way people start doing business and manufacturing or whatever changes. I'm not an expert in that world, but I just know what I've seen. And I know what I've seen and what even family has experienced. Then you kind of, get left in the dust. Wow, people enjoy the fruits of the labor. So there's grief in that, I think, too, and just being misunderstood in that too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like it makes me think about you saying you identifying yourself as like a birth worker and a human that cares for portals. And it's like it makes me think about the history of this country, makes me think about and not just like in the more contemporary like 20th century, but like thinking about the birth of a nation. It makes me think about like afterbirth. It makes me think about, there's this pivot in this contemporary moment. I'm grateful to know a number of birth workers who are like, how do we care for birthing people and mamas so that like your needs are met after you do the major work of labor, and when I think about Michigan and when I think about I had the opportunity to stay in Detroit for a week in the fall of last year, and it really stuck with me. Um, there's like a starkness to it that I wasn't expecting, where I was like, I'm meeting like there are some places that I went because I traveled all around the United States where I was just sort of like, oh, I can kind of easily glean the personality of a place. But
Mhm.
Detroit was more guarded with me. And
Mm, mm,
um and I went to like a co-op in Detroit, and people and like the folks that were working there were so kind to me, and this guy helped me out to my car, and there's like these moments of connection where I was like trying to like sniff it out. What's this place like?
yeah.
And you're gonna have to help me because I'm gonna forget the name of this museum. But I think it's like Charles A.
Charles H. Wright Museum.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went there the day of the election,
Oh.
November of last year. And I
Hmm.
must have been like the only person in the museum except for the folks that worked there. And I went because they had an install about James Baldwin and when Baldwin hit. And so I was like, okay, I went there for that. But then I got the chance to see the permanent installation. And I walked through this installation that walks you through like the gate of no return, and you're like on a slave ship, and like all of this and I didn't read. I didn't read. I just showed up.
Hmm.
There is an audio component to that installation. And so I'm all by myself on this day of kind of like reckoning of our whole our whole nation, and just like seeing our history um, come to life. And when I tell you, like, there were so many spirits in that museum on that day, like reaching out to me, talking to me, and I was like, I am not prepared I didn't wear the head covering that day, like I was just out and about. I just thought I was gonna read a little bit about James Baldwin. I didn't know.
Just out
Um,
here in the wind.
but I will never, right? I will never forget. I don't know that Detroit was like, you're gonna learn today, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
I felt one kind of shook, but two very grateful, that there was this sort of like clarity. Sometimes grief can be amorphous or unclear, but it was direct. And I don't know, I just felt like I got to know Detroit that day in a way that is very special, was very like, I will never forget. I like a day that I will know for the rest of my days. And I appreciate what you were saying around like sister cities and grief as a part of living. And when you see the grief not just in the humans, but in the architecture and how buildings look, in the space or the lack thereof of roads and alleys, and how close or far apart homes are from each other. Um, it also makes me think about, I'm from Oakland, and so the grief that I hold from the place that I'm from is just knowing so clearly that like a generation of revolutionaries were murdered, were taken. Um, and I was really clear on that by the time I was a teenager, that there is a price to revolution, and that like black and brown folks and like the birthplace of the Black Panthers, and then also like so many migrant folks who were organizing there, so many like Asian American folks who are organizing all throughout the Bay Area, and the overlap of that, like seeing the extraction, seeing the like finger licking, like eating it up. And also when it comes to like queer organizing, um, and disability justice. And then what happens, like what is left there, and then to kind of grow up in what is left over.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like in Oakland, like I've one thing that I think about with Detroit and grief and the way we honor our grief is it feels like even with our creativity, we're not trying to cover up like what has happened or the grief. It's
Mhm.
almost like the um like decay and destruction even become visible, still visible in what is made new and the creativity, and we like it that way. We ain't trying to like clear it out and build something up and make you think that nothing happened there, you know? Do you feel like Oakland is like that, or is it like a nah, we done made way for for new buildings and whatnot, and that's how we acknowledge the grief by making something totally new. Because also I've never been to Oakland, but I really want to go. I really want to.
We need to do a little page tour.
Yeah.
Um, what would I say? I mean, one thing about my family is I grew up all throughout the Bay Area. Like I had a grandparent that I lived with primarily that was in El Cerrito, which is right next to Richmond. I went to Richmond Public Schools. My my grandmother, Betty Jean, that passed away in 19, she was in San Francisco. And so those are like kind of polar, one end of the BART line, the other end of the BART line. And then my sister lives in Fremont. So there's just like this like triangle of Bay Area, which has a lot of different experiences. Some of it's more suburban, some of it's more urban. And I would say, especially in the last like 15 years, there's been such a major gentrification. Like, I still haven't seen it. But I keep preparing myself to watch like the Last Black Man in San Francisco, that movie. I know I, I know, when you're like, my heart's just not ready.
I ain't even
But
from there, and I was not ready because I could relate. I could relate a little
when
too
you watched
hard.
it,
Oh yeah.
no, I'm not ready. Well, my family has lost equity or homes like $2.5 million of property in a generation.
Oof.
And so there's a lot of like hard work um that happened in these like homes and places that no longer exist. And I've
Yeah.
experienced a lot of grief around secure housing, around like my elders doing their best to age and die with dignity. Um, and so when I go home, I'm going to a place that I don't recognize.
Yeah.
And there are some parts of Oakland that are unchanged. And so then they experience this moment in a different way, like being heavily surveyed, not having access to like that good public transportation or like less access to, fresh fruits and vegetable, like the way gentrification makes it so like over here is really high rents and a yoga studio and you can get a cold brew, and over here there's less resources and maybe there's still a TT and an abuela and like um
Hmm.
and it's just it be like that. There's some beauty of what of like of another time. And I do think that history and like archivism is very bold and alive there. And there's ways that it's been like kind of chewed up and spit out or reimagined. And it's all there. And you can see where it like um runs up against each other.
Yeah.
Are your parents in Detroit?
No, so they're both from Detroit, but when I was younger, we moved to a place 30 minutes outside of Detroit called Ypsilanti, Michigan. Um, it's
Okay.
funny because I was just that you asked that because I was just thinking about like Ypsilanti in relationship to Detroit, and it's
Mm.
completely different history. It's like a smaller. It's not a small town. It's a small city, I would say. Um, and more. There's a part of it that's more rural. There's a part of it that's like definitely a town, but I've watched, like, as I've grown up on a much slower scale, I've watched all of it become more gentrified.
Yeah.
And even the parts that were more like spread out and used to be more rural, there's more things being built up. I have like a lot of curiosity when I go home about like who's being displaced by this. Like,
Yeah.
farmers who have been here over generations and generations, like even a lot of them Black, to be honest, like it's been a place where people moved during the Great Migration or moved when like Ford opened up a factory or something like that. And were able to move to a place that was, integrated and still have land, do their farming and things like that. So I'm looking at that too, just like, okay, who is with all of this springing up, like it has to be on top of something. Like there's not just
That's
nothing there. Even if it's not Black folks and it's indigenous folks, and that's a whole nother thing of like who who got moved away or who got pushed away from here. Um, and Ypsilanti's been interesting too because it's right next to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where there is the University of
okay.
Michigan. And it's always been that the two are kind of put in put in opposition to each other a little bit. Ann Arbor is a little bit more affluent, wealthy, and folks would then look down on Ypsilanti as being, I mean, just straight up poorer. It's classism. It's some
Yeah.
racism too. Um, and as I watch like gentrification spread, there are ways that like folks are trying to make Ypsilanti look more like Ann Arbor or
Mm.
or and there's also strong pushback to that as well. Just like, no, stay your asses over there. If you thought that we were so poor and janky, why don't you just stay over there then, you know?
Hmm.
Which I kind of appreciate. I mean, it's also interesting that it got characterized that way because it's a place that's been like integrated for a very, very long time. I think I read that like the first church in Ypsilanti period was a Black church.
Mm.
Um, and it was also one of those places where like people may stop on Underground Railroad or they go further north and then they come back. They come back to it, you know, after things have cooled down, after emancipation has happened. Um, and so I also growing up, there was an interesting kind of angst isn't quite the word, but that's the one I'm gonna use right now of just like why people would look down on that particular city or town in general. People from surrounding cities that seem to be
Mm.
more economically well off. Um, but to me, it also like it's kind of related to like that erasure I talk about with Detroit, you know. It's just like y'all don't even know what y'all don't even know what folks here have, you know, have done to survive, to build our own culture, um to make this a home. And then again, you have the again like factories closing or stuff like that, you know a Ford or another car company moves in and then they move out and that impacts everybody. Um, and yeah, just like the grief of that, the grief of that too. People whose families moved up during Great Migration to, you know, do something different, try to make a life for themselves. And then things change or yeah, it's just hmm. It is. I think that's like one of the like non-death but kind of death related griefs that we're talking about. It's just like the erasure, the classism, the exploitation, all of that.
Yeah, and like manufacturing is so hard on the land. And just thinking about all of the families and babies and elders who have lived and aged and died next to like the aftermath of like so much major manufacturing. And
Mhm.
it's kind of bonkers to like go to a place, you use it up, use, consume, and then just like dip out.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
And it
Exactly.
makes, I feel like Oakland can sometimes be treated like San Francisco's like ball-headed stepchild kind of. And like San Francisco is like always kind of known as being much more white and like, you know, the Castro and like the gay man of it all.
Mhm.
Um and Oakland in proximity to like Berkeley, UC Berkeley, you know, they're very different energies. But there's something to me about like what you were talking about like looking down on a place. And I'll never forget in 2011 there was this like great places to live list, and Oakland I think was number 1, and over fucking night like so quickly it went from like everyone wanted to be in San Francisco to like what's Oakland doing? What's happening over there? And
Mhm.
like I am so grateful. I went to Oakland School for the Arts, and I was the first graduating class of Oakland School for the Arts. And so all of these Oakland artists, there's a lake called Lake Merritt, and there was all of these like one bedroom apartments or studios, or like more like places where folks could afford to live and be a working artist in Oakland. And all of those people were my teachers, like my vocal music teacher, were my dance teacher, were like creating theater, like orchestra, like all of jazz. Um, and I wouldn't be the artist that I am without each one of those humans who was making and like thinking deeply and like investing in young artists like at that time. And I don't know, it makes me think about ritual. It makes me think about lineage. And I'm wondering if there's anything you want to share around like, yeah, your art making practice or like ritual, lineage, any of those fucking words. I don't know, but like Paige, Paige.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first things that is coming to mind is, I mean, as you're going to as talk about artists and like lineage, people we learn from, and then ritual is music. Music for sure, even though I'm not a professional musician, music is just so a part of, I don't know, just how I've learned to be in touch with spirit, or just to feel uh what it means to even have a soul. Like, especially in, of course, Detroit, Motown, so many other wonderful musical legacies though, besides Motown. There's also the strong gospel lineage. And I think about like the church that I grew up in was in Detroit. Even when we moved to Ypsilanti, we still like went to church in Detroit. My grandmother lived in Detroit, and it was the church that my grandmother went to and my mom went to, and my auntie went to. So everyone, shout out to Greater Quinn African Methodist Episcopal Church on Rosa Parks and Davison, uh, on the west side. That place, raised me. And like, I think learned some of like the foundations of ritual. I don't like practice Christianity anymore, but there is so much that I learned there that still absolutely applies when I am singing for the Orisha. Like it's the same thing. It's the same thing, and also just what it means to be present for people in grief or any kind of like heightened spiritual state or transition, or I saw a lot of I saw like a lot of ritual and a lot of like spiritual like counsel and like leadership, but also that being shared among people too. Like I didn't realize that through what I thought was just being roped into teaching Sunday school because I was one of the kids who was there all the time. And I was now a teenager, which meant I could teach the younger kids and doing the youth group stuff to the point where, AME Church is very organized. And so we're talking like on state level and then on like regional levels and then national levels and doing all of that. Like, yes, I was in church. I was in church and doing choir and the, praise dancing and all of that. I had no idea what all of that was like setting me up for, like and I also think in ritual, in even just singing hymns, in the way we do altar call and people come up to pray. Um, I think you like learn a lot about ritual, like making space for grief and joy to be like right there together, like one and the same. Like you, I don't know, you just feel it or know it when you know you are singing praises or singing the most joyful song, but also people are falling out wailing, you know, crying uncontrollably. Or things get so heightened that my favorite times were when things got so heightened that the rest of the order of the service didn't matter and we just had to go we just had to go with spirit.
You're like full disruption.
Yep, yep, exactly. And I would get mad when it seemed like we were supposed to be going with the moment and going with the spirit, and people were trying to go on to the next thing. Like, actually, maybe what we don't need is a sermon right now. Actually, maybe you do that sermon next week. And maybe we just need to be in the moment.
Yes.
Like the unexpected things that come up with ritual too. Ritual isn't just, well, okay, maybe for some people it is, but in my lineages and how I learned, ritual is not just, these planned steps that you do the same way every time. It's about
Mhm.
the practice of being present every time
Mm.
and being willing to go with what comes up. Maybe altar call just turns into people letting people wail on the floor for a while. And that's what
Mhm.
it is. Like it's not your plan that makes it the ritual. Yeah. Yeah. That's what's coming up. Oh, and also, powerful, powerful people that I witnessed using their gifts of music, of preaching, um, and seeing how that moved others. I think that was like a big part of the like lineage gifts that were passed down and like
Mhm.
the mentorship that I didn't quite know was mentorship at the
Mm.
time. And seeing folks of, I mean, it was a Christian church, so a lot of the time gender was defined on a binary for sure.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have the queer musicians. You have the you have listen, for many years our drummer was a stud, okay? And we just didn't talk about it, but like the drum and she played the shit out of those drums,
But
okay?
it's like
E- Exactly.
I really like the drummer. The drummer's really doing a great. I'm really interested in the drums.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So glad
Yep.
you're here. I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad I'm here. Yes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So happy to be here. Yep. Yep. Love walking past the drums and making sure I say hi to her in the morning. Yep.
Hi.
Or we were also like blessed to have I guess assistant pastor who was a woman, and I'm gonna trust the audience of this podcast and be to me she gives queer vibes. Queer vibes was not in the way she moved through the world did not fit the traditional standard of woman, feminine, da da
Mm.
da that was, you know, mainstream or a part, the dominant culture at the time, or even what we were being told in church, to be honest. Like, she had a powerful, commanding presence, and she preached that way too, like deliberate, just
Mm,
loud, and people loved her for that. There were some people who I would only see at church on the Sundays that she was preaching. Like, and so I think seeing that from such a young age too has just like left an imprint on my brain. And now that I like am older, I understand that, like, oh yeah, people who are just are able to like step outside the gender binary in some way have always been spiritual leaders and always had a draw. And I think part of that was just
mm,
like watching her let spirit move her how she needed to move without regard to what traditional womanhood or femininity is. Like, I didn't have
yeah.
language for it when I was young, but now I do. And I
Mm,
absolutely like consider her as part of like the lineage of uh spiritual leaders, spiritual guides who have influenced me, even if I'm in a different tradition now. Like, she's absolutely part of that.
mm,
Mm.
mm.
Thanks for letting me ramble. Like, I feel like
Oh no, I'm
let
with
me
you.
go
I
down memory
it up.
lane there. Yeah.
We love it there. It makes me think about you're saying like even though you're not a part of this spiritual tradition now, and in the last like year and a half, I've really gone through so much transformation, like physical transformation, like having top surgery, but also just every facet of my life is different than it was. Shout out Noodle Return, like
Woo.
shaking everything off that does not serve. And pretty quick as those changes were happening, I I remember one night like looking up queer affirming churches.
Mm.
And I've been listening to or attending First Corinthians Baptist Church in Harlem ever since. And I don't think I've missed a Sunday. Like every week I hear the word and hear their church, and I think hear their choir. Um, and I think number one, it's like I grew up with my grandparent, my maternal grandparent, and so we went to like kind of hippy dippy white church, which is so different. And I remember one Sunday they were like, you know, sort of nonviolent activist kind of vibe. And I remember them being like, everybody needs to bring in their super soakers. We're gonna bury them. Nobody can have no guns. And I remember being like, my super soaker? Not my super soaker. I'm gonna have my super soaker. I was like, I don't want to go anymore. I don't like it here anymore. The coloring pages were cute, but now you're trying to take my super soaker it's a no. It's a no for me on that.
Yep.
But on the other side of my
Can't do it.
boundaries, I'm not doing it. On the other side of my family, my dad's mother was a practicing Catholic her entire life, Black Catholic from like East Texas, very rare. And then the other side of my family is Baptist. And so a lot of like I didn't have a lot of experiences with the church, but all of my experiences were like I'm getting it wrong. Like my outfit's fucked up. I don't know the hymns. Like I was like, I don't know when to stand. I don't know when to sit. I didn't understand. I was like, there's a whole language that I have missed every day of class and I can't take the test. Um, so as an adult, finding my way to like, for me, it's very much so like an ancestor veneration practice. Like the people that I come from love for me to listen to church on a Sunday. They're like, turn it on louder. Sometimes I'm tired, I just listen to it in the bed. They're like, we don't care, turn it on. Play it now. Want to hear it now. And there is nothing like seeing a black man, like a black cis man, just like break down in tears at church. It's really nice.
It
It like
is.
does something.
Absolutely.
And when I was in Harlem, in the last couple of, I don't remember when it was exactly, but not long ago, I got to go with my chosen brother and his partner, and I'll never forget, we were like in the cab on our way to church, and we saw these like, very cute, very femmy, like faggoty boys on their way. Where I was like, oh, I bet they're going to brunch, and I will never forget being in my little pew and be like, there they are! They came to church too! Or like getting to church and like I'll get there like early or something, and then when I go to leave, be like, where all these stems and femmes come from? Like there are so many Tims up in here. Like who? What is going on? Or like the little blended queer family with like the baby from the last relationship, but the stud that stepped up. Like it is so good for me.
Sounds like medicine that I need. I need that.
And well, okay, so we have a whole Paige world tour. We need to get Paige to First Corinthians Baptist in Harlem.
Clearly, I just need to look
Um,
around the country. Bet.
right? We have multiple stops.
Hmm.
But there's something so beautiful to me about like that's it is definitely the lineage that my family is a part of, even though it wasn't a part of my upbringing. And I feel so much like solace being able to experience it now. And since I didn't grow up in it, I don't have some of the same wounds that some of my like comrades have from the church. Um, and so I get to like profit from it in the soul kind of sense. Um, and I do a bunch of other spiritual, I'm a part of a sangha, and like I love some witchy shit, and like, like there's many ways that I'm able to connect, but I appreciate what you were saying when you were talking about Detroit and talking about music and talking about what it means to have a soul, like soul care. Like, how do we tend to our soul? I
Hmm.
like this.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. That's hitting me in the heart space. I had to stretch for a second. The
Burn
Yeah, yeah. I believe I'm receiving some of that smoke virtually, I'm sure. I could almost smell it. I could smell the roses. Yeah, the soul care, the soul care. One of the things I love is just like polytheistic Black folks especially, because just I think about how we need so much soul care for what for what this world does. I mean, a lot of people do, but speaking from my experience, I feel like it just opens up so many possibilities and so many, I feel like, ways of healing and grieving and having joy and loving and all of that when we are allowed to be that polytheistic self or connect to spirit in different ways. Like different things do different different modalities, different traditions do different things for me. Like, and sometimes even like back to music, that can be its own religion sometimes. A lot of the time. And but then I can also, still honor what I was raised with in church, and I can go over here. I love me some Buddhism, okay? I really do. I haven't like committed to it in like a deep way, but I feel like that'll be another quest at some point in my life. I haven't made it to that
Yes.
point of the journey yet, but I fucks with it heavily. I'll say it that
Yeah.
way. Heavily. And of course the like African traditional religions, which there's even like multiple of those as I go down that road and seeing the differences between the different spiritualities that we developed in the diaspora that may be rooted on the continent, the differences between the two, and it just like allows us to honor our complexity too. Like we all know like blackness ain't a monolith. We are all so different. We come from different experiences, but also have like some pretty big shared experiences. And so, like, when I could open up how I get to do the soul care, like, it just, I feel like it allowed me to just live my life more expansively and allow myself to be complex in a lot of different ways.
Mm.
Different ways. I've been doing what I've been calling funk devotionals, where I listen
Go.
to funk music. Funk, me and funk have just been real close lately. I just like let the guitar like go through my body. I let there's so much gospel in funk too, so I know I'm connecting that way. And like I will start playing it like for meditation, and then let my body just move with it too. And I often end up doing like some serpentine movements, or I move my hips a lot, of course, opening that up to some funk as well. And I'm just like, wow, we can connect to spirit in so many different ways, or have so many different ways of doing soul care. And like, I think funk is one of those things we've created where it's just so like rich in feeling in a way that like we can't even name it as just one thing. Like I have trouble even naming what makes funk funk. We just I feel like we
Mm.
just know it when we hear it. Like our face gets screwed up and we're like, ooh, that's funky. Mm. Like, mm, you feel that? Like you feel that? Ooh.
You crack me up in the
Yeah.
best way.
I just love connecting to what makes me do that. Like,
Yeah.
do you feel that? And I don't want to deny myself that either.
Absolutely not. Have you seen Sly Lives, the documentary?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You saw it.
Yes, I did.
And with it's so interesting because I watched it real recent, like in the last couple of weeks. And one
Mm,
thing that really hit for me was like getting to hear D'Angelo talk about the importance of Sly Stone. And so, yeah, just putting some respect on both of those ancestors' names now. Um,
mhm,
music, music as a religion. Yeah, music as like, I don't know, just thinking about where we started the conversation, like talking about Detroit, talking about like places that hold so much grief and have birthed so much, and like what is left over there, and like thinking about Detroit as like this this place of Black hope and this place where like so many Black folks made pilgrimage, like my children can be born here, like new life can happen here, and the way that like what has been extracted from, you know, and for there to be just so much beauty, so much like vitality that could come out of a place, and to listen and learn so much about like Sly and the Family Stone coming out of San Francisco, coming out of the Bay Area, and like what it takes to what it takes to create and be like a godfather of a movement of music. Like that's what? What?
Hmm.
The brilliance, you know? Um, and I think it was really powerful to watch. I'm often thinking about madness,
Mhm.
and I have been slowly developing like a clown persona for myself as a way to like exalt and like there has to be a place for madness. There has to be, you know. Um and like Black madness in particular, like yes, anger, yes, rage, but also that like pushing up towards the veil kind of thing. Um and it was really impactful for me to listen to this prolific artist story, and how, you know, that same thing that we were talking about when I think about Oakland, when I think about Black genius, and like I don't know, there's like something about who is around you, who is watching you, who is ready to take from you, you know, and to see how he and so many of his collaborators, thinking about Sly, did so. I don't even the change the world. I don't know. Like I don't think that that's putting too much on it. You know, funk is pivotal,
Yeah.
and then to see the way that like the soul care that was needed, but that didn't. It doesn't look like from the archive that was available. And so then what is available? What is the bridge between like the madness, the pain, the fear of success, the genius, and like the day-to-day well-being? Got to do some clowning about it, you know, so we don't lose our fucking mind. Like letting there be a place where you can lose your mind
Mm-hmm.
and then put it down, and then I don't know, go to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, clowning seems like such a beautiful practice, and though just the way you are talking about it right now feels like really close to masquerade, and like some of my reasons for getting into masquerade, I was like, I need a place for all the things, all the things that, yeah, pretty much feel like madness, and feels like, especially if I try to express it another way, like I'm just like, these are things that I don't know how to put into words. It's being close to
Mhm.
my grief, it's being close to the veil, it's being close to pleasure at the same time. It's being close to like creativity, and like I got into masquerade because it felt like I was like, finally, here is something where I can embody that and like honor madness um
Mm.
publicly, in a way where I feel like I can be completely like present with that state of being and still feel like protected. Like there is still something to me about like being able to go to that place publicly or have it like witnessed and still feel protected.
Mm.
So I feel like in masquerade, it's like I'm kind of like putting a different face on it or creating a different face for it. And not that it's not me. It's still me. But it's like creating a vessel for
Mhm.
for that madness, not to contain it, but really to honor it, you know? Or maybe
Makes me
to
think about like something like a metal container where like it could get so hot the fire could go all the way up to the heavens, you know? And
yeah,
like the air would pull it there, but like it is contained even in its
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's what like so many carnival like practices have been for Black folks like across the diaspora. Like that's what I see is people letting that flame just go, get as hot as it needs to get for that one day
Mhm.
or a couple of days. And then you can let it die down and it not
Mm.
burn up the whole room. Or even spending like I think of like the masks that people take a long time making, or ones that I've done that have been very, maybe they didn't take a whole like long time, but have been very tedious.
Mm.
Required like just a lot of focus and even like physical labor to like put something together. And it feels like building a like building a pyre, like almost building your own like your you know what I was gonna be not I was like not to be too morbid, but you I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Like
Read me.
to remember who I was talking to, like building my own funeral pyre for me to just like burn in and become a whole different thing.
I mean, read me. You know, I, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I've been going on a couple of dates recently, and I have to have these moments in the mirror before I go where I'm like, we're not gonna talk about death. We're not gonna talk about death and grief. We're gonna keep it light. We're gonna keep it light, Brianna. And do I succeed every time? No, I don't. No, I don't. But I have the conversation nonetheless. Nonetheless. And sometimes people are like, you want to talk about death? And I'm like, yes, I do. Thank you for remembering who the fuck you're talking. Yes, I am. I am they. Yes. Well, because I think death gets a bad rap. You know, sometimes people
Yeah.
are like, oh my God, death, that's so, I've died so many times. I have died so many times. And if you haven't, you're suspect. That's how I feel. Like, you're not trustworthy to me. If you haven't like put a version of yourself in the fucking ground, covered it up and been and cried about it,
Yep.
what do you mean you're over the age of 30? What have you been doing all of this time on this earth?
Not a thing, apparently. If you haven't melted down into compost and then be regrown into something else at least once.
At least once. Thank you.
And like I don't get it. I'm just like you just got to do it. Trust me. You'll grow. You will grow into something else. It will. You know. But you.
Face. I had this homie that was talking about how There was a summer where I was very melting down, and this was a summer 4 years ago. And I remember her saying to me, shout out to Emma, mon amie française, she was like, "You're in your hermit crab experience." She was like, "When the hermit crab outgrows their home, they have to, you know, put their put their big boy pants on. You have to go from the shell that is too small and run without shelter to the new shell where you might be able to grow." She was like, "You are in that in between space where you don't have the protection, where you're trying to find the new home that is big enough to be able to support you." It makes me think about that. Makes me think about, I had this beautiful monstera plant in one of my past lives, like on this earth. I had this plant, and it was growing and growing, and I didn't repot it in time. And so when I finally took it out of its pot, it had become root bound. And all of these roots broke off because it had been trying to expand and trying to expand. And when I finally put it into its new home, like, it had now space to grow, but I had waited too long. I had waited too long to take it from like this one pot to its new one. And so roots that had been trying to grow broke off and broke off. It makes me think about, how do we repot ourselves over and over again? Where are the places where we can grow? And that tenderness when we have to go from like what is familiar but now too small to a place that might be vast enough for us. It's fucking terrifying.
Oof. You spoke a word. Listen, I told you I grew up in church. You about to make me start shouting. I had to hold myself in from another. Hey, 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 hey. Mm, mm-hmm.
It's, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Death. I mean, what a pleasure. It's the living. It's the living every day. That's the scary part.
Yeah. Yeah. Oof. Wow. I'm gonna sit with that. With the root-bound monstera.
It
That was
fucked me up. It took me a while to really look at it and be like, I made that choice. Like I watched it needing something new
yeah.
and sat there while it struggled.
Mm.
I made that choice. And we get to make different choice. And today I get to make a different choice. But I'm wondering, I know that your masquerade was kind of the catalyst for what pulled us into conversation. And I'm wondering if there's anything else that you would like to share about the masquerade that you created and continue to create. If you want to share ways that folks can be like mindful of the work that you're doing and how to support you and how to know more about what you're doing. Yeah, a little bit more, Paige, before we end for today. Oh, it's always, I love talking to you. We could yap all day. Well, I could yap with
Absolutely.
Paige all day.
I absolutely could yap with you all day. I'm just like the yapping has been activated. Yes. Um, oh gosh, I think okay, so my masquerade project that I feel like I kind of wrapped up recently may come back in another iteration. Called Other Side House. And it was like a house for grief. It was an installation. It was created by my friend and collaborator Marae Regulus, and then I created like these figures in masquerade called thresholders who hold space for people who come into the house. Um, and I think I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot from that about
Mm.
grieving in community and like just how hard it can be for people to be witnessed by other humans in grief. You know, it can be a lot to just like fall apart in front of another person, but there are like other ways of being witnessed and being held by something or someone. Whether that is like being in nature, that's one of my main things when I'm just like, I don't want to do this in front of a human. But I will do this in front of the river or in front of this tree. Um, I felt like by creating these thresholders, like I could make that space for people to be like a presence, but like a non-human seeming one. And so it was interesting how like it was interesting just to see what changed for people to like have a presence in masquerade um there if they needed us. And most people were told like if you want someone to come into the house with you, if you want the masquerade to come into the house with you and witness, like you can do that. But otherwise we just stood outside the door in masquerade. And most of the time that was all people needed. They just like someone to be or something to be at the door and to open the door for them and invite them to be in that space with their grief. So I think a lot about that and I just hold on to that. And something that I want others to think about too is just like who or what can just like hold the door open for you and just like stand by the door as you go to that place. Um, it can be a lot for it to be a human, but maybe even that human don't ain't even gotta look at you. Maybe you just again, you just need somebody to be at the door while you grieve. Be here as you know, just ask someone to like be there as you know that you're about to go into that place. Or even if it's, you know, in this modern world of text, to just, hey, I'm a touch some grief today. Can I check in with you about it later? Can that thing be the river? Can it be a particular tree? Can it, you know, like I think having that witness is important and helped people feel like there, I don't know, there was just something or something, someone there to anchor them. Um, yeah. And then the project I'm working on now is part of Naked Stages Fellowship at Pillsbury House and Theater.
Yes.
Yes. I'm so excited. Oh my God. It opens in a month, November
It
13th.
opens in 1 month.
Yeah, less than a month, really. Yeah. Yeah, that's my face.
I want to see it.
Just like, oh shit.
I want to see it.
Come and see it. Come to Minneapolis. Just, just come to Minneapolis. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
keep going.
Come and see it. Come and see it. Um, so masquerade for that, there are three Black, queer, trans, ancestral archetypes that are being embodied throughout. And I think like through those, well, there's also as part of an installation, there's an installation that'll be in the lobby of Pillsbury that holds space for these ancestors, that have altar spaces for them, have space for people to think about the lives of Black, queer, and trans ancestors, ones that they know specifically, or maybe they don't know specifically. Like there's a lot that I'm doing that's based on like real people that I know, and also like some storytelling and fabulation going on of imagining what their lives could have been like, or imagining the kind of stories that they would tell if they could tell it to me directly, like we're sitting here talking right now. So they're, you know, based on ancestors who have come to me in meditation, um, who have come through making masquerade just like intuitively as I'm beading or paper macheing and things like that. Um, and just like really honoring their lives, honoring the grief of maybe the ways that they didn't get to live fully, and the grief of like what we're still feeling from that too, and the ways that maybe we have trouble like living fully into ourselves because these ancestors are us and we are them. Um, but it also space to like imagine what they would leave with us now, or not just imagine, but embody. Like I'm really trying to keep memory in the body, keep these stories in the body, uh, do different forms of like oral storytelling, embodied storytelling. I think that that is so important, because we need multiple ways of like archiving, of storytelling, especially, under this creeping fascism, it may not all be on the internet one day. Shit. So what what we gonna do then to tell the
Stay tuned.
story of Marsha P. Johnson or Miss Major? Or can we have masquerades for them? Can we have songs? Can we have these other forms? So yeah, that's really what I'm playing with. It's called House of Masks. I be explaining it and just talking about it and forget that it has a name because it's such a
House of Masks. I feel like as you were talking, I was like, you need to meet my good Judy Seta, who did a work called Unbound that's about the Hinesaro people here in New Mexico and their untold stories and a lot of like it's movement storytelling and the way that what you're talking about and the way that Sara there is such you're coming to New Mexico is already figured out. Or maybe
yeah.
New Mexico's coming to Paige. I don't know. But I think it would be really beautiful, like what you're saying around archivism and like where do things live and how do we tell these stories and we are our ancestors. What does it mean to allow ourselves to be vessels so that their voices can be heard, so their stories can be told, so that we can like metabolize, even like talking about it, I can feel it in my throat. It's big shit. And like I'm like a TV boy. I love TV, like TV and a movie. And for
Yeah.
some reason, like as you were talking, I'm gonna take a little bit. We're gonna go on our tangent because I love a
Yes.
fucking tangent.
Let's
But
do it.
did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Do you remember the story of Hodor? And do you remember that?
Yes. Oh.
That was just like plaguing me as you were talking about like opening the door of grief and who watches the door. And this character that we know for such a long time within Game of Thrones. And then we like come to find out like why does this human only ever say Hodor and like that it stands for like hold the door and that this one being is like keeping out like I mean, what does that even symbolize? It's like to be eaten, to be like changed, to be like the White Walkers. Like there's some fucking in there that maybe will hit me later, but like it makes me think about Detroit again, like what it means to be to protect, to allow people to like get free, like you talking about this town that your family moved to and how like folks would find their way through there on the like on the Underground Railroad, but then like also folks are looking down at this place, but like the importance of this place and the grief that it holds, and then like how does it continue on?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and like thank goodness for the storytellers and that like I know that I'm from a long line of like niggas with a story to tell, like the orator. And how beautiful to get to witness. I gotta come to Minneapolis next month, you know, like I gotta see this. I gotta see it. I want to be in the room because I feel like
You
I got
totally
to
should.
see Unbound. I'm gonna be there. I got to see Unbound when it came to Albuquerque, and I couldn't stop crying. And I'm not really like, that's not the, I don't know, I don't cry all the time, but I didn't feel like I was crying my tears, you know, I just like felt this like reverence and like I was crying for for who needed to cry, you know? And I think when ritual and art making really does what it's supposed to be doing, you know, and just getting to be in the room and feel like the pride of our elders, the pride of our ancestors, like it's so sweet. It's so special. It's so like definitively delicious, you know? So good
Mhm,
for the soul. And I would
mhm.
love to get to see your work. Yeah, I'm so excited for you and so grateful that we got to talk today. And so grateful that I get to be in a world where you're making this work because, ugh, I don't know. I don't have any more words other than that of gratitude. And yeah, I just really like you. That's all I have to say about that.
Oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for you. And I'm just like, it's so nice to just be able to talk about death and dead people and like be just totally fine and
It's
and
just
also just
Saturday,
be in
you know?
awe of just like the way you open that up for people and like all that you do. Like it's so needed. Like I feel like you're one of those folks who just like the way you naturally be in the world, like be giving other people permission, even if you're not trying to do that. Like that's what we feel. So yeah. I love this conversation. I like you so much. I'm gonna come to New Mexico. I'm gonna do
I know, you come here, I'll go there.
it.
The music at the beginning and end of this episode is from Kafari. Thank you to my guides and ancestors for supporting me in my storytelling. And thank you for listening to another episode of Signs of Breana.